Welcome everybody to the third installment of the Innovative Idea Competition Prep Series. This is session 3, Know Your Competition. I'm going to turn it over to Professor Alan Kersner in just a little bit. For those of you that have joined sessions like this previously, you know the drill. For those of you that this is your first time, bear with us as we go through a few just kind of key pieces of information about the Innovative Idea Competition. Alan, if we could advance the slide. As always, the Innovative Idea Competition is kicking off. That's why you all are here, hopefully. Submissions are due October 11th at 11:59 p.m. So just before midnight, the portal will remain open and then close at midnight. So be sure to get your submissions in before then. You can take a picture of this slide and use the QR code later to go to the submission portal and register your idea. Alan, if we wouldn't mind advancing. And so again, as a reminder, this is open to anybody within the Temple community. So students, alumni, staff, faculty members with an idea. This is a competition that you should not have a fully fledged business. If you do, we have lots of other opportunities for you, but we really are pushing this as the idea competition. We feel like this session and this competition is a great start to your entrepreneurial journey. We think that folks that go through this process find it helpful, kind of getting a sense of what it's like to attend a pitch event, what it's like to go through the submission process and see the reviewer feedback, all that sort of stuff. And like the last bullet says, everybody has ideas, and this one is your shot at making them a reality. Next slide, please. So again, who is eligible to enter? Anyone from Temple University. The requirements that you need to have kind of measured as of September 1st, 2023, you need to have less than $5,000 in funding. That can either be through competitions or capital investment. You need to have less than 25K in revenue, and this company or this idea should be less than 2 years old. Again, just a note that you will be pitching your ideas live to judges and a live audience. We'll go through more on that in a minute, but these are what we're looking for. Again, the QR code would take you to the key dates and all that you need to know about the competition. The submission portal is open now. It's been open for a while. We are, approaching the deadline. So we are a little more than a week away, a week and a few hours. The Entrepreneurial Student Association, our SPO within the IEI department, will be doing a review of submissions next week at this time, if that is something that you are interested in. And please note that finalists are announced on October 19th, so a pretty quick turnaround from hearing after the submission deadline. And then the live pitch competition is happening November 8th from 5 to 7 p.m. If you're following along in the chat, Emily is posting some great stuff about how you can stay involved and links to all of those competition lead-ups. Thank you, Emily, for that. So the prizes for our graduate level alumni, staff, and faculty, the first place prize is $1,000 and second place is $500. For the lower track, for our undergraduate students, those two prizes are the same. We can go to the next slide. And then all folks are eligible for the grand prize, $1,500, the crowd favorite, which is $500. We have partnered with Cyber, which is another department here at Temple, for a Global Innovation Award of $500. And then the Digital Innovation Award, that is for $1,000. And again, all of this information and the breakdown of kind of what that all means can be found by following the QR code. And again, Emily's right on top of it, putting it into the chat as well. For those of you that are familiar with the Blackstone Launchpad, they're running a concurrent competition that is housed within the Innovative Idea Comp. Jennifer is here to talk a little bit about Blackstone. She'll share a little bit more about this at the end. But there are Blackstone award tracks that are $1,000 each in all of these different categories. These are open to both undergraduate and graduate students. So you will note that those are not for alumni, faculty, or staff, but any current graduate or undergraduate student is eligible for either of these tracks. You may only submit to one track, and teams greater than 2 are not accepted. I think that may be, oh, nope, sorry. A couple more slides for me. Sorry about that. Just again, a quick overview of how we rate and score the submissions. There are 6 portions of this that you will be judged by. The elevator pitch is worth 5 points. This is all in like the rubric, and again, it's spelled out on the submission page. The opportunity and problem is for 25 points. The competitors and status quo is another 25, and then your solution is another 25. So that is the big bulk. That's where we want you to spend the most of your time, figuring out the opportunity, problem, the competitors and status quo, and your solution. You'll get 10 points for customer, user, and stakeholder impact, and then 10 points for your plan for addressing the unknowns or the challenges. Again, follow the QR code for any submission tips. Some key resources. There are e-strategist hours that are happening every week. Those can be found on Startup Tree. As I mentioned, the Entrepreneurial Student Association is doing a live submission or pitch workshop next week at this time, or I'm sorry, from noon to 1 during their regularly scheduled time. And then you can see my email address as well as Julie Stapleton Carroll's email address. Julie is with the Blackstone Launchpad. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to either of us, and we'd be more than happy to help guide you through this process. Now, I think with that, yes, I think I'm turning it over to Alan. So I'll let Alan give an introduction to himself, but Alan, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Well, based on the faces I saw or the names I saw, I do know some of you. I've been at the IEI for 7 years. More recently, academic director, previously head of the Temple University Entrepreneurship Academy. And let me just take a minute for Jennifer also to introduce herself.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jennifer Jenkins. I work with Julie Stapleton Carroll at Blackstone, and I think probably most of you already know what Blackstone is about. We are working for a charitable organization that helps grads and undergrads to realize their visions in startups. So we have a lot to offer for you. We will talk about that at the end, and I give it back to Alan.
Okay, thank you. And if you're wondering what I'm looking at there, I must have seen Neil walking down the hall or something like that.
That's definitely it.
That's it, huh? So can I make a request if the people who are here are not at their offices or in their pajamas, if you could ever put your cameras on, that'd be great, because my goal is for this to be much more of a discussion rather than reading off a PowerPoint to you. Thank you. We got one camera on. Okay, so you just make this a little smaller. So a lot of people think my idea is great, it's innovative, I have no competition. And I suffice, and this is not out of cockiness, but I will bet my salary against yours that no matter what you're doing or what idea you do have competition. And sometimes your competition is people figuring out how to deal with their issue on their own. But we all have competitors, no matter what. And there are different types of competitors to think about. There's same product or solution. So, if I'm coming out with a new sneaker, all right, and maybe one that helps me jump higher, well, there are a heck of a lot of sneakers out there with a very similar promise. Okay, so that'd be a direct competitor. There are indirect competitors. Maybe there are other sneakers that don't talk about helping me jump higher, but they're still competitors. They're similar. There are alternatives, all right, that are suboptimal but adequate, such as workout videos that teach me to strengthen my calves and thighs and whatever else I need to be able to jump. And then there are substitutes, completely different solutions. And then there's the status quo, and this tends to be what we all overlook the most. Because people are dealing with issues in their own way. We all tend to be pretty creative and innovative on how we figure out ways to get around issues in our life. And I am going to pause for a minute and editorialize. So I've been at Temple for 7 years. I've been involved in the idea competition, in the social impact change maker challenge, in the be your own boss bowl. And the one area that submissions tend to fall shortest is understanding the competition. I cannot tell you how many times our reviewers write us and say, didn't the submitter even do a simple Google search on the issue they're trying to address or their proposed solution? And for those who have had my lean startup class, it's a similar comment I make when you provide your business ideas for term projects. Every time I get an idea, I do a simple Google search, and I'm amazed at how many submissions are not aware of what's out there dealing with similar issues or similar proposed solutions. So please be sure you do it. If you do it well, it puts your reviewers in a very good mindset. If you don't do it well, they're going to tend to review the rest of your submission with a bit of skepticism. And I will say, too often in the entrepreneurship and innovation world, we think we have to create something new, rocket science, something never before seen, blue sky, if you're familiar with that terminology. But some of the most successful innovations and entrepreneurial ideas have been twists on what already exists. And I'll give Amazon as a simple example. Amazon's not selling, at least when they launched, anything that Barnes and Noble wasn't doing, Borders bookstores back then, record stores, like for those of you who are a bit older, Sam Goody or Best Buy now or whatever. They were selling the same products other people were, but they had a totally different distribution strategy, which was rather than selling through stores, they sold through the internet. And then they developed new warehousing and inventory strategies. But they didn't come up with something that was never heard of. They just adopted on ways to sell fairly commonly purchased goods. And by the way, the goal is for this to be casual. If you disagree with anything I say, that's great. Bring it up, because any discussion we have will help all the other people on the call thinking of submitting. Or if you have a specific example of something you're working on, I don't want to go into a ton of detail, but again, bring it up, because some of the challenges you're facing going through your submission, I'm sure, are shared by other participants. Okay, so Why is understanding your competition important? And I'm going to deviate from the slides here for a minute. The number one reason it's important is because you will only succeed if you offer advantages versus what is out there. If you're just a me too, you might succeed for a little bit, with some fancy social media thing that goes viral, or maybe you offer it at a lower price. But since your competitors are a lot bigger, they'll eventually undercut you on price. For long-term success, you need to be able to clearly communicate why you are better than the competition. Why are you better than what's out there that your potential customers are always using? And the only way you can identify your competitive advantage is by knowing what your competitors are offering. So you want to know what you're up against. And that basically speaks to what's being offered, what are the benefits, what are some of the issues, how could you be better? Again, it's all about learning about your customers. And your customers could be consumers, they could be B2B, business to business, they could be B2G, B to government, or B2P, which is philanthropy. What customers like and don't like. Pricing strategies. I truthfully wouldn't worry about this in the idea competition, but it's good to know what your competitors are offering. How are they marketing and distributing it? I just talked that Amazon's innovation was not in the goods they provided, but in their distribution channels. Can you innovate around that? Industry best practices, supply chain issues, partnerships. Again, this is more BYOBB oriented, but it's good to have a holistic view of your competition and to think about how you are going to be different. So how do you learn about competitive information? Well, you could learn from customers, census data, if there are relevant market research studies, or if there are studies you do. And again, in this innovative idea competition, hopefully some of you might have done some qualitative research with potential customers, talking to them one-on-one, but you shouldn't be spending a ton of time on the research aspect. You should spend it on the thinking aspect. In terms of your industry, there's great trade association data, industry articles. If you want to come up with a way to be sure university students know how to balance a checkbook when they graduate, which unfortunately, I'm not sure universities do a great job of. There's been a ton of articles written about that. There are journals. Access the Temple Business Library. We have an Emily O'Neill, I don't know if you remember his name. We have a great business librarian who will be very eager to help you look at anything. And there's the Philly Public Library. In terms of competitors, there are investor analyst reports. So all the stock houses, the money managers are every year, every 2 years, do an in-depth study of the automobile industry, whatever. When I was teaching part-time at Wharton, I had a team that was working on poultry and pork. They were a Chilean company. And believe it or not, Goldman Sachs had a biannual conference on meat and protein. And the team learned everything they ever wanted to know about pork and poultry, probably more than they ever wanted to know. So think about that. There were investor day slides. there are Google searches, and there are all types of online access. By the way, if you're thinking of using ChatGPT or whatever, a word of warning, most of the AI engines like ChatGPT are based on available data on the internet. And oftentimes that's heavily reliant on Wikipedia. As we know, Wikipedia is not validity checked. So there have been several examples where people use ChatGPT and it wasn't 100% accurate. So just, be careful and double check what you have. In terms of general, there's government data, Crunchbase, which is basically an investment database. There are VC funding articles. Again, you don't have to use paid databases. You could try to use the Temple Library and Brick. Any question on these resources? Okay. So again, the best way I always think is talk to prospective customers. It is not required for the Innovative Idea Competition, but as a bonus for you attending this workshop, it's always looked positively upon when you've actually talked to people you think are your potential customers with the issue you believe they have and understand their experiences. Okay. So I'm going to quickly go through some of the sections of the submission form. 25 points on idea competition. How is the problem currently being solved? Why are customers not thrilled with the current solutions? Who are your direct competitors, indirect? And most importantly, what is your competitive advantage and why? And again, your competition could be the status quo. So an example that I utilize in my classes is if you have a migraine headache, okay? Migraines have just an unbelievably powerful and traumatic effect on people's well-being. And there are a ton of solutions, right? There's pills, there are Botox shots in the head, there are all types of things. But when I ask people, mainly students who have migraines, what do? They tend to go into a dark room or a closet and try to fall asleep with no stimulation, because any stimulation really hurts them. So their status quo is basically cocooning until their migraine goes away. And the ones who get the Botox shots in the head, they're expensive. It's pretty painful. Get 17 needles in your head. I only know because my brother does that, etc., etc. So those are all status quo solutions that aren't meeting the migraine sufferer's needs. Questions or comments? Okay, so were you given this YouTube video to watch on competitive advantage? Yes, no? All right, let's see if let me know if you can hear this. Okay, can someone put their camera on for a second and give me a thumbs up or thumbs down? Can you see and hear this video?
I can see your screen, but it's not playing, so I don't know if I can hear it
I
or
have
not.
to reshare. All right, thank you. Let me reshare. Okay. So let me play this. Now everyone can see it?
Yes.
Thank you, Lindsay.
I can't hear it though.
Okay, Emily, help me. How do I put the sound on here?
I can share this tomorrow with our follow-up email so they can watch it after, if that's
Okay.
easier.
Okay, that's easier. Plus, sorry about that. Plus, the next slide summarizes what you talked about. So let me go back to the PowerPoint. Wait, what's going on? All right. Share. Where's my share? Okay. Sorry. Let me just get going here. All right, let's try this once more. Mm-hmm. All right, let me go back. Okay, so one of the, you can see the PowerPoint now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so a simple way to think about what your competitive advantage is, it's what is your company name? I'm going to change what you're best at to what you are very good at. And why, and most importantly, why does this matter to your competitor, to your consumers or customers? So a competitive advantage is something you do very well, better than anyone else. But if it's not relevant to your customers, it's meaningless. And the best example of that, and I used to work in skincare on Olay Skincare and then at J&J. And at J&J, they tell me how on all the instrument testing in their labs, their skincare products tested the best of all competitors. And my comment was, okay, that's great. You test better against in this machine testing than any other skincare product. By the end of the day, it's meaningless because the women who are going to hopefully use your product aren't machines. And by the way, your aesthetics stink and your fragrance stinks and everything else. So for it to be a competitive advantage, it has to be very meaningful to your customers. Okay, so other things, just as you're looking at your competitors, what are your what's going on here? What are your competitors missing? What are your customers really missing? And what can you do to delight your customers? So I'm going to stop here for a second because I'm tired of talking. And I'm going to open it up to everyone else who wants to share sort of their general idea and who you think your competitors are and what makes you different, what you think your competitive advantage might be. And don't worry, you're not all working on the same ideas. And you don't have to do this, but it's just a way to try to personalize the material and make it a little more meaningful for you. Does anyone want to share?
I'll share mine. if none of the students want to share theirs.
Sure.
Because I'd prefer a student to have an opportunity to.
Anyone? Okay, go for it. Maybe you'll inspire others.
All right. So my company's called The Thought Method. It's a thought-based approach to personal development and mental wellness. And I write a series of books called Thought Books that are dedicated to specific goals. So the first one is called Overthink, and it's how to stop people overthinking. And I teach innovative cognitive techniques and help people to stop overthinking by learning what it is. It's just unproductive thoughts, and how to change their mindset. My competition is what I'm having a problem with. And the reason why I joined this meeting is because I felt like personally identified in it said like, I have no competition, probably you, like whoever wrote that. I'm like, yes. Now I'm realizing my competition is likely people just trying to solve it on their own with unhealthy coping mechanisms like drinking. And then also my competition is like there are two current books about overthinking. One is just geared towards women. And then another one, I went to the Amazon reviews and people say that it's just repetitive information. And then I guess another competition of mine would be like if people just go to therapy because they want to have guidance instead of doing it on their own.
Okay, good, good. Anyone else want to, thank you for sharing, Lindsay. Anyone else want to share with Lindsay what you think her, or who or what you think her competitors might be? Are there other competitors? Oh, I'm going to pronounce your name, but Kinchuku Watu, were you trying to say something? No? Okay, just because you're muted. You're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I wasn't trying to say something. But you want me to say something?
Now, I'm sorry for butchering your name.
Yeah.
You have any thoughts about other competitors, direct or indirect, for Lindsay?
Um, you mean specific to my idea?
Well, to Lindsay's idea, then we'll get to you.
To Lindsay's idea. Overthinking. ChatGPT.
That's a really good one. I didn't think of actually. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, I just thought about it. Yep,
Yeah, that's a really good one.
yep.
Anyone else have any thoughts? So Lindsay, and I think you're right on this, but I'd say another thing is people doing nothing, right? I mean, they're not even drinking or seeking help or reading books. They're just trying to live with it. And then this is probably very minimum, but don't Beck and some of those cognitive therapists also deal with the overthinking, or no?
So when I found when I was looking at reviews that a therapist was actually looking for a book to refer to her patients
Oh,
and is having trouble finding. So I'm actually going to mail her a physical copy of the book. I looked her up and got her address.
good. Maybe she'll become an influencer for
I
you.
was hoping
Oh,
so.
Ethan, your hand's up.
Yeah, would another competitor for her be like maybe there's like an app that people can download that plays like sounds, like people who refer to just sound therapy for that. I know like brown noise is like a big thing for calming the mind down. I use it sometimes, brown noise. I like that.
And I was thinking that like mindfulness apps are something that people do. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Okay, so because your last name I think's easier, Mr. Acoli, would you like to? You could correct the way I pronounce your name just so I know, but would you like to share your idea and your competitors?
Sure. And my name is Kenneth Chuku, or you can call me Kenneth, for
Connect.
short. Yeah, Kenneth. So it's where my idea actually is. The first one was really ambitious. Now I'm just thinking about, you know, taking it down a notch to another specific idea. So let me just give you a breakdown. The first idea is like a venture studio. It's a venture studio leveraging new technology to build startups. But I figured that it might be too ambitious and maybe hard for people to really understand. So what I'm focusing on is the company, one of our incubated companies under the studio. So this company is called InstaTruck. Um, so basically, it's a platform that lets you order ahead from food trucks, and basically get notified when your food is ready and you go pick it up, right? So it's really focusing on making the food ordering experience from food trucks easy. Um, my competitors will be, um, you would say DoorDash, Uber Eats, right? Grubhub, but these platforms don't really have food trucks on the platforms. You would say I do have direct competitions, right? Another platform focusing on food trucks. Mostly these platforms focus on events, right? Like catering events for food trucks. Um, Very rarely are they really like focusing on the whole like direct experience for food trucks, right? Other platforms I see is more like food truck finders, right? Know the locations of food trucks near you, right? Some of them don't really have like a payment infrastructure. You can order from the food trucks. So the idea is basically InstaTruck is to focus on the whole food truck ordering experience, right? So for example, in schools, like here in Temple, you have students, waiting in line, right, to order the food. I can imagine students could, before they leave class, they could order ahead, right? And when it's ready, they just go pick it up, right? Imagine if it's raining, if it's cold, etc. It's just kind of like reducing the barrier to like getting your food from food trucks, right? And it also help food truck owners, manage the orders in one tablet, right? Um, Easily update their customers rather than having to, when you have a bunch of people in line, you got to remember, and they're very smart people. Yeah, they've been doing this for a while for sure. And, they have to remember the name, like the orders, the faces. So it's kind of like makes it easier for them to manage all the orders. So competitors, those are what I mentioned. But I mean, if you guys have any other competitors you can tell me about that I have no idea of. So I'm open to that.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Anyone want to suggest other competitors?
So when I looked online, the first one that came up is called Food Truck Pub, where you can order. And then I would say also like people's I can see ordering from like Grubhub too. I don't know if it's just like in my area or what. And then I would say like when I order stuff, I tell myself like I need to go pick it up. So I think competition would just be people like forcing themselves to go walk to get it themselves.
Yeah, true. Exactly. Yep. People
Great.
saying like, oh yeah, they don't need to order ahead, they just go pick up. True, that is
Well, and
right.
like I don't need all these tacos and these cookies, so I'm gonna walk the half a mile to get it and burn some calories before
True.
I eat it.
That's true. I thought about that actually. But I think the problem is because I personally faced it. And funny enough, I was talking to a bunch of users, right? And you're right, there's certain people that would like absolutely not. If there's a fee, right? Like now I'll go walk and pick it up, right? But the people are like, oh hey, this is smart. I see Grubhub doing this for like I think some cafeterias and in the student center, like they do have this whole order ahead. I've seen now, like, you know, you've noticed like a lot of big brands are pushing like mobile apps, order ahead, pick up, Dunkin' Donuts. So it's a thing, right? But there's nothing really targeted to these food trucks. Yes, people are used to the fact that, walking up to food trucks and that experience. But sometimes, most times, I just want my food at the end of the day, right? If I just need to wait in line and hold my phone, right? If I could just know when my food is ready. So like you said, this is just um yeah, like it's a preference thing, I believe, for sure.
Okay, and that's a good point, but that is for some groups a competitor for you,
Yeah.
indirect perhaps. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, just one other thing to think about, and most, I don't know how many food trucks do it, but at least there's one right outside here at Alter that actually you could call up for your order and it'll be ready when you come up. So that's sort of like the Band-Aid approach right now. Another
Exactly.
competitor. Okay. All right, good. Well, thank you for those who volunteered. I'm gonna jump back in here. Any questions or anything before we continue? All right. So a good way to show your competitive advantages or disadvantages is what's called the competitive power grid. And this came out of Dream It, which is truthfully probably the preeminent and first accelerator, whether it be Dream It or Y Combinator. And so what you do is you list your benefits. You could do the same thing for features, but at the end of the day, what are the benefits being offered by you and your competitors? And hopefully there's at least one that you're offering that your competitors are not. So in your submission, you don't have to do a grid like this, but it usually will help you demonstrate your point quicker than paragraphs and paragraphs of prose. So think about doing a paragraph or so, and then this chart to illustrate your point of advantage. Okay, so here's an example, and this is not based on reality, it's for illustration purposes only. But you can see Google's listed as showing the most relevant results, load time, less than a second, etc., and the others don't. Now, interestingly, is anyone familiar with DuckDuckGo, which has been around for a couple years now? So what DuckDuckGo offers, and they just started running commercials right against Google, is DuckDuckGo guarantees that no one's tracking what websites you're on, and it's not using that data and selling it the way every other search engine is. So if you were DuckDuckGo, you would list as a benefit that only you had and not any of these other folk, including Google, is protection against, what do you call that, trolling or cookie tracking or whatever. So you don't have to worry, if Romina is on a site looking at South American art on Google, she doesn't have to worry within the next 2 days of getting a bunch of emails or spontaneous things on her browser talking about South American art. So that's a real benefit. And that's, I think, the only reason DuckDuckGo has gotten some traction. Okay. Another example, I don't know if people are familiar with Simply Good Jars, J&J MS grad. He was a sous chef cook who was looking to do something healthy and environmentally friendly. And so what he basically started doing is creating these fresh salads and desserts in jars. He started by selling them in vending machines, and if you returned a jar, he would donate a free meal to Philabundance, which is a food bank in Philadelphia which feeds the hungry. He has since moved into retail. He's in Saxby's at Alter. He's in a bunch of Wawas. He's in some Costco's. But, originally he was competing against Farmer's Fridge and Bite. And you could see he had several advantages against them, mainly it being a lower cost of equipment. His product, his food was organic, and he used reusable packaging. Okay, everyone clear on competitive grids? All right, so let me stop for a sec because the rest of this presentation is actually on elevator pitches and the different sections of the submission. Do people want me to go over those, or do you feel you're good on them? You could vote in chat, please, whether you want me to go over the sections of the submission form.
Can we have a Q&A on competition first, and then if there's time, go over it? Not to.
Only one chat. Come on, the rest of you, I didn't put the rest of you asleep, did I? Okay, so we have yes, so let's do a Q&A and competition, and then we'll jump into the submission format. So who has questions about competitive advantage and competitors?
So I have one question, like it's very specific for me. I think, I don't know if it will help someone else out. My product line, so my thought books, like the first one's overthink, the second one's sleep, not think, and then I'm going to do some DE&I with like fundamental attribution error, and then go into cognitive distortions and all different things. So my competition for each book is different within my product line. So when I'm talking about my competition, do I just talk about the competition for my first like introductory product, or do I talk about all? Because if I list all, I mean, competition for sleep is massive.
Okay, so what is the product that you are submitting? Is it one book or is it your series of books?
So I was just submitting like my idea for thought books. I mean, I guess I could just submit one product.
No,
I
I
don't
don't think you have to. Okay, so a thought, and I know this is broad, but you could talk about self-help books in these three categories.
Okay.
And you don't have to list all of them, but perhaps take the best-selling ones, or whatever, the most recognized, whatever. But what was interesting, and Jennifer, you may have a different viewpoint. My guess is I don't know. It's interesting. Is your biggest competitor other books? Because those are people who are at least thinking of books as solutions. Or is it people who have the issue but don't want to read a 200-page small print book? And in fact, your competitive advantage is you do workbooks, which are much easier and more interactive. And again, I don't know enough about your product, Lindsay, but as I'm listening to you, that may be an avenue for you.
Well, that's at least to another question that I have too. Last one. I don't want to like ostracize, but I have a lot of trouble with this space. What if my product, like, I feel like it's people go self-help and then they do journaling. Like there's two competitive things. Mine is a mashup of both because it's self-help with journal prompts. And then it's only 18,000 words, 150 pages. So I make it shorter people. So I feel like it's like a mashup of all these things. So I just write out all of that. See?
Well, okay. So one thing I'll offer, if you'd like to speak like tomorrow or Friday or Monday, welcome to do that. Emily can put my email in the chat. Well, then it broadens your competition a little bit, right? Because journaling is another competitor.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I would think about it, and maybe your advantage is you offer an integrated approach utilizing both techniques in an easy to use format. And I don't know. I don't know enough about what you're saying. Jennifer, any thoughts that I'm missing?
I think you just hit the nail on the head with that, Alan. You're going to attract people who already read. And if you bring these two groups together, the people that read and the people that journal, and attract them in a way that makes them interested in both, it'll be easy because you already do this. And now we're going to add this into it. I think that would be a big bonus.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else want to talk about challenges in your Ethan?
Could I just talk about my competitors?
Yeah. Yeah, but you have to give us a little background on your idea so we know, at least
Oh,
we're
yeah.
informed on the competitors.
For sure, for sure. So my idea is to help people who find it very stressful to cook, or who just aren't good at cooking or have a lot of things going on in their life. So my idea is like a self-stirring, I guess it would be like an implement to put on pots when you're cooking that stirs the food for you so that you can walk away, you can go do other things and come back and you'll know when it's done. And my competition is actually very limited. There's like, well, my direct competition at least, the two companies I know are called Saki and Sturmate, but they have like very different like designs than what I'm thinking.
Okay. Okay. So are there indirect competitors?
That's what I don't know
Well,
for that.
is a timer, if you said that you have something that stops people from burning your food, I'd be over your apartment in 2 seconds buying it from you. But I mean, are timers used? Is that an indirect competitor? Do people, I don't know. Do people set timers to know when to stir? Are there other types of ways that people are sort of doing it now if they don't have one of those two implements you mentioned?
Apart from just like naturally how we all stir it ourselves, I don't have any. No, I don't know. I haven't
Don't
found
people
any
just like
either.
order out?
Well, yeah, that too. That's a good one.
Anyone who cooks how do you deal with knowing when to stir or remembering when to stir?
So, Ethan, if you're cooking and you're using this to help you be a better cook, why is yours better than the others?
Well, the other two, the Saki and the Sturmate, like I said, they're different designs that are like completely separate attachments that you have to kind of attach to the pot, which I think is very inconvenient and kind of a waste of space. With my design, you know how pots have lids, it would just be connected to the pot lid.
So that might be a really good selling point. If you looked back at that chart, you might be the only one that has a design that way.
Okay. So it looks like, Ethan, that at least from this group, we're not hearing a lot of indirect competitors, other than memory.
Ethan, another thought that I had is like your target market might also be in terms of people who are, too busy or wanting something easier, could be like people who make a lot of like crock pot meals or like instant pot meals. You know what I mean? Like using those types of tools, or, whether it be a pressure cooker or a slow cooker, right? Those tools, at least the ones, the meals that I've made in them, like don't even require me to usually to stir them while they're cooking overnight or whatnot. But I guess my thought being like those same people might be currently using those solutions to cook.
Well, that's interesting. As I'm listening to you, Jennifer, indirect competitors are easy meals that don't need to be stirred. And perhaps what you're doing, Ethan, is you're enabling those types of people to have a wider range of food because this gadget of yours will stir it for them.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else want to share? No? Okay. So I'm going to jump back into the presentation. Again, stop and ask questions as I go over every section. It'll be easier that way. So the first part of the submission is the elevator pitch. And an elevator pitch is basically a summary of what you're offering to who and why. So it literally, the original one came, I believe, because someone was entering a competition at some university and they were stuck with one of the judges going up to the 12th floor in the elevator. And basically, the judge asked this person to describe what he was going to present. And it was supposed to be 60 seconds or less. So it truly does come from being stuck in an elevator. So what do you include in it? All right. One way to think about the story is that your target audience has a problem. It says that costs them this much. I think of the costs in terms of psychological, emotional, and functional pain. What is it that's impacting their life about this problem? And then you have your idea. How does it solve the problem? All right, so we heard one is for Lindsay, a combined journal and sort of easy how-to book. Ethan's got a gimmick that allows people to eat food that needs to be stirred automatically without worrying about forgetting it. Why can't your competitor do this? What are the barriers? Here's how you make it or do it. You could talk about resources and potential. I wouldn't get into resources as much at this point as just talk about what's the potential of your idea. Let me give another example. All right. The first thing is do not assume your audience knows anything. So many times when we have finalists at competitions, they assume that these judges who are very well established, brilliant, involved, but they assume that the judges know everything about every industry or area. You're writing and you're going to be reviewed by at least 4 reviewers who may not know anything about cooking, about overthinking, about whatever idea you have. So be sure to ground them and give them a full understanding. Elements, be sure it's a lot of C's. Clear, concise, cogent, I guess that means understandable, and compelling. Don't bore them. It should be direct, action-oriented language. It has to describe who you're targeting, what problem they're having, and what solution you are recommending. You want to elicit questions, but only questions because they're interested. And don't get into technical jargon or sales pitch terminology or sort of tooting your own horn. Okay? So here are some other do nots. You want to be sure people get it. So here's an example where people are using a lot of buzzwords: social network, monetize underutilized assets, find and access available assets, real life exchanges. Yeah, it sounds good to us. It's a bunch of bull to someone who's trying to understand your idea. All right. So I'm going to show this video and then see if there are any questions. I think you should be able to hear this. If you can't hear it, unmute yourself and let me know.
We can't hear, Alan.
Okay. Guess I got to share again. Wonder why that is. We might have to send this one to you also. Let me know if you could hear it.
We cannot, unfortunately.
No?
Nope.
Okay. Sorry. We'll send you this link too. Yeah. Boop, boop, boop. All right. Sorry about that. But basically, the point they're making. Oh, sorry about that too. The point they're making is that it has to be understandable. So, any questions about elevator pitches? All right. It's something that you should not expect to write and have it good enough to submit. Write it, have someone who's not familiar with your idea take a look at it, see if they understand who you're targeting, what the issue is you're addressing, how you're addressing it, and why you're better than what's out there. And then rewrite it a couple times. Okay?
Hey, Alan, I have a quick question.
Sure.
For the purposes of the elevator pitch, if your, I'll say, user of your product or service is different than maybe the group or organization or person that would be considered the customer or the person financing the product or service, how do you frame your elevator pitch? Is it to the user?
Well, it's really to, in this case, and help me if I'm being wrong, Jennifer, I think it's to a non-user that you're trying to describe your idea. Because for a user, you never use sort of what I'm going to call semi-business speak as much. You wouldn't address, hey, I'm targeting XYZ. You say, this is something for you. So imagine that it's for sort of someone independent who would not be an end user. Would you agree, Jennifer, with that advice?
I think it really depends on the circumstance and where you are at the time. I know I do a lot of pitching to agents, and so they're interested in what I have to say. So that's a different sort of give and take rather than pitching to people that might take part in what I have to sell. Investors are also really good with elevator pitches, also because they're really, really busy. So the best you can come up with, the shortest elevator pitch that's really interesting, the more you're going to grab their attention. And that's when they're going to turn around and say, tell me more about it.
Good. Does that help?
That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, now I'm dating myself. I don't know what Mad Libs is. Oh, I guess this is a Mad Libs elevator pitch. Again, this is from TechCrunch. So here's you want your elevator pitch. These are the same words we said. Company name, what is it? What are you developing? Who are you helping? What's the problem? And why are you better? For those of you who have done value proposition statements, start with your value proposition statement and then build in the other parts you need. But to an extent, a really good value proposition statement contains the major elements of an elevator pitch. All right. And these are things we've just said repeatedly. All right. So here we talk about StartGo enables members to capitalize on their existing network to monetize underutilized assets. And all right. So that was the one we said was sort of gibberish. This makes a lot more sense, right? Internet service company developing an online marketplace. But that sort of stinks. What's a hip professional? If you talk to me or you talk to Jennifer, who's way cooler than I am, she'll probably know what you're talking about with a hip professional. I won't know what you're talking about. And I truthfully don't invest in hip professionals. So, you know, you want to not use, what do we call that? Hyperbole?
Jargon.
Yeah. What type of professionals are you targeting? Young
For
professionals.
this one, since they own their own properties, then wouldn't it say we help homeowners gain access? That's what I'm not getting, because I didn't know it was just for homeowners until the end of it. Do you see what I mean? For earning money from their own property.
Yeah. So one could say that this was almost an early vision of B2B, not Airbnb, although it wasn't necessarily desirable vacation properties. A lot of times they were meeting or conference locations. So you always, and this gets to my point before, you always want to be refining. Here, one more example. This is enough. Then we'll move on to the other sections. What happened here? Did I die? Okay, so here's a bad example. I work on nanotechnology to develop medical therapies to targeted cells. Not sure everyone will get that one. But if you say you're using manufacturing techniques in the computer industry to make better vaccines, all right, one of the things that we always talk about is what's called anchor and twist. When you're describing what you're doing, if you can utilize a technology, a situation, a product that people are familiar with, and use as an analogy to explain what you're doing and how it's being applied differently or yielding a different benefit, that's very effective. Make sense to everyone? All right, I got to speed up here. All right, this is the value proposition statement. I'm going to go breeze through this. All right, so a couple things. To win, no matter how good your idea is, your elevator pitch has to be clear. And it includes your value prop. The opportunity is clearly explained. The problem is worthwhile, meaning significant to at least a measurable population. And all this, we've identified all this stuff. Okay, so I'm just going through this. We're going to provide the deck to you. Okay, so, whoa. Did we take out the other sections of, maybe we took out the other sections of the submission portal? So let me stop, hand it over to Jennifer for the next couple slides. And then we will have time for questions on other parts of the submission form if people would like.
Okay, well, thank you. So I'm here on behalf of Julie Stapleton Carroll, who is off on a conference this week. And again, Blackstone Launchpad is here for you. We do one-on-one mentoring, so you can make an appointment to come into the office and talk about your idea in the same way that we've been doing in this workshop, but you can do it one-on-one and get some really good feedback on exactly what it is. Julie is very well versed in the business world, so she can give you some, what about this, or have you thought about that, and lots of things about competition as well. Also, as part of the Office of the Vice President of Research, we have great resources to innovators, people that have come out of Temple and have made things like the people that made Honeygrow, which is one of my favorite places. And also we have resources like grants, which is, hey, free money. Yes, you have to fill out some forms, but the government will give you money. So this is a really good thing for you to think about as well. The best news about all of this is that it is free to you, absolutely free. It will cost you nothing. So bring your ideas in, come and talk to us. You can make an appointment or you can come in during office hours. You can see in the QR code will take you to where we are. You can also, I know Julie's email is in the chat as well. And any questions that you have, we also do have a pitch session coming up where we are signing people up in half-hour increments so that they can go through their pitches and we can work on it together. So it sounds like it's scary, but I promise you that it is not. And what do we have next?
Yes, good question. Okay. Emily, you want to talk about 1810?
The Innovation and Entrepreneurship Institute is found in the 1810 building on Leocoris Walk. We are on the first floor to the left of the security desk, and we have an open space to all students, undergrad, graduate, faculty, and staff to come in and use the space to evolve their business, work with our program director, and you can always meet with Alan as the academic director there. His door is always open, and it is members access only, but to join, all you have to do is scan this QR code, or there's a couple placed at the entrance of the 1810 building.
Yeah, and I would recommend, even if you're at another part of campus, scan the code. It's a really comfortable work area. It's sort of a community of like-minded people. And you will see people such as myself, Neil, the head of IEI, Michelle Histon, Emily, other student, I don't want to say student workers, they keep us in shape. Other people walking around that are always glad to chat with you about your ideas and questions. Next. Okay, you talked a bit about this, Jennifer, right?
Yes, this is Julie actually doing her magic mentoring students.